Eva here, and today I am discussing with you the books by Stephen King that I loved and the books by Stephen King that I hated. There are a few in the middle, but I'm not gonna mention them here. So yeah, let's start with the books that I ended up loving, because they are the most popular one if you want, so there's not gonna be many surprises here. However, if you're new to Stephen King, you want to try out, these are the books that most people like. I did love them as well, so I guess it would be a good start, because I actually didn't start from these books, and I actually gave up on him for a few years because I thought his writing was not for me, his books were not for me, but that was my mistake. And then by chance I got through a book that I'm gonna mention and I loved that one, so I gave him another try and I didn't regret it. When you have an author with such amount of work like he did, I think it's really easy, to get some hit and some misses. Said that many people say that he's not good at ending, and I agree. A few of the books that I loved were not total 5 stars, and most of them were not 5 stars because of ending, which was a bit weak. Some of them I loved all throughout, but some, yeah, they were a little bit weak in the end. But that's not justification not to pick them up. I have not read all of them. I kind of plan to, but I'm not gonna force myself to read all his works. But maybe in a lifetime it will happen, who knows. So let's start with the only one that I have a physical copy. This is probably the one that I liked the most. It's hard to say if I like this more than the others, but I think this is the one that stuck with me the longest. And I read this at least 3 years ago, and I really liked it and still think about it and I still recommend it to people, especially because then I watched the movie, which I hated. So apart from the performances, I hated the movie. They changed so many things. So if you watch the movie and you're like, man, that's shit, or like if you watch the movie and you enjoy the movie, this book takes different turns and twists than the movie does, and I actually loved the book, which made more sense. Absurd as it is, but yeah, I preferred this and made more sense reading it in this format than just watching the movie. So this is the story of this little guy who goes with his family in a hotel because his dad accepts this job as a caretaker for the hotel during the winter months, when the hotel is closed to the public. So it's just them in this huge hotel, and really weird things start to happen, scary things. I am usually not easily scared, but this book I was reading like with dim light at nighttime, and there was the bit when he gets into the room and he goes in the bathroom and so on. I was like really scared. I had to like breathe, put the book down, because then I was like, I'm not gonna go in the bathroom ever again if I don't take a break. So yeah, this book actually scared me. I had to compliment Stephen King for that, because usually I don't get scared in books. There are a few parts that were a little bit absurd. I will link down below my Goodreads review where I say what I loved and what I found a little bit absurd. So there are a few things that are a bit far-fetched, but overall it was really interesting to see the mystery of what was going on with this hotel and to see the end. And this one, I actually enjoyed the end. I enjoyed all of it, and it was just entertaining and kept you on the edge of your seat. So I definitely suggest this as an introduction to Stephen King, and if you can do a little bit of horror. Then the most recent one that I really enjoyed, I listened to this on audiobook because it's a humongous book. I loved this one, even if I don't usually listen to audiobooks and I don't really appreciate them. This one was so good. The premise is that you follow different timelines. In one timeline, you follow the events that happens when the little brother of one of our protagonists gets killed. People say, oh yeah, it was an accident, he just drowned. Instead, the bigger brother, Bill, he thinks that there is something shady going on in the city because a lot of kids are going missing. And people in the city, they know that these kids are going missing, so something has to be fishy, but they don't care enough to resolve the issue, or they don't really put their mind to. So Bill and his group of friends, and you learn how they become a group of friends, because they are all kind of misfits. So they get together to stop these killings from happening, and then you follow them when they are grown up and they've gone separate ways, and you will read what happens, and they have to go back in Derry, Maine, because this fight is still on. So you follow both timelines, and it was really fascinating for how childhood was depicted. I think it gave a lot of good messages on childhood and how a group of misfits can come together and find friends and, you know, find a place where to belong. It was really nice on that side. It was scary, but not too much. I haven't seen the movie, the recent one, but I want to. I think that was gonna be scary. So yeah, very much chance that I will never come out of my do it either again. So maybe that's the last time we see each other. But apart from that really likely turn of events, I might not watch the movie. I think I should. I don't know. Sorry.
One eternity later.
But as I was saying, I overall really enjoyed it. It was fascinating, and this book has more than 1,000 pages in it. It takes its bloody time as always, but I think the peculiarity of his stories, and one of his strengths, is actually creating such characters that are so detailed that you then really care about them. So he creates really complex, full of detailed stories, and if you're just there for the plot, his books are slow. But if you like plot and character-driven stories, then he can do them well, and that was one of those. Then I've read Carrie by Stephen King, which I really enjoyed. This is his first work, and honestly, his first works, they are usually better than his most recent ones. At least that's what many people that read Stephen King have said to me as well, and I tend to agree. Those I've read more recently, I tend to enjoy less, not all, but many. And his oldest works were better, in my opinion. So far, I've not read them all. But Carrie is about this girl that she is really bullied at school, and her mother is horrible, so she has a shitty life, and one day something happens and she just loses her shit. There's no other way to say it. She's not an hero, she's not a good character, but you root for her because of all the shit she's gone through. This book is actually really short, which is not typical of Stephen King, so it's a good introduction to him if you want to start with a short book, but a good one. So the plot was really entertaining, and you root for this girl. You know that, you know, that's not what you're supposed to, and she's not the good guy, but he makes us love her, which is not easy because it's a tough read if you want, because, you know, if you're triggered warning by bullying and so on, maybe skip this one. It's really heavy. But I remember that I was just fascinated by this story. Last one that I can say for now that I really enjoyed was Pet Sematary. This was scary as well. So there is a bit by the end that was, whoa. Okay, let me switch on the light. Let me cool down 1 second. But I think this is another one with a really interesting plot. Like, you want to know what's going on, you don't know what happens, and I really like the ending as well. There is a movie which has already come out or is about to come out, so yeah, you can watch that as well. I will probably skip it because I'm a chicken, but I don't know. This one, yeah, it was just compelling to read. I want to know what was gonna happen. I read it really quickly, and I think it was sometimes a little bit far-fetched, but in this case it was a good one. I don't know, I really enjoyed it. It was highly entertaining. I didn't take it away any kind of deep meaning that you can take from Carrie and from it. It was just a fun ride, if you can call it fun, whatever. But yeah, it's famous, and people say it's a good one because it is. For the bad ones, the first one that I read, and that was my introduction to Stephen King, and that's why I'm saying maybe this video can help you out, guys, to like figure out where to start, not to do a miss like I did at the beginning, because the first book that I read by him was The Running Man, who he wrote under the aliases of Richard Bachman, something like that. So he didn't, at the beginning, was not published as him, but I knew it was him. And this is about this man that he lives in poverty and in a dystopian society, and basically his wife has turned to prostitution in order to afford the medicines for their daughter. If I'm not mistaken, it's the daughter who's ill. And then basically in this world there is this competition each year where a bunch of men are put out in the street and they have to escape manhunters. So basically they have a 12 hours head start, and then these guys will start like chasing them, and every day they stay alive, they earn money, and of course if they can stay alive a total amount of days, then they will receive a big reward. So this is what this book is about these men taking part in this competition and starting running around the country while people are trying to kill him off. I hated this book. It's been more than 10 years since I read this book, so I don't remember why. I remember that I read it for school with a really peculiar professor in high school. You can say that. And I freaking hated this book. I thought back then, I remember, it was really in poor taste. Now, maybe if I read it now, I would appreciate it more. Maybe I would not hate it so much, but I think it was boring. It's not a long one, but it was boring and I just couldn't care less. I thought it was just overall in bad taste, like everything was disgusting and nothing was really fascinating, and this man went through so much shit for nothing, and in the end there was like, yeah, really? Like you made him do all that stuff for this ending? So yeah, that was my first Stephen King. That was my first Stephen King, and that's why for years then I didn't pick up more. So yeah, maybe be careful of that one. Fortunately, I didn't like Doctor Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. Now it's the sequel, meaning that you follow the kid in The Shining. There's the kid, you follow him when he's grown up. He's trying to resolve another mystery, but it's a bit linked with what happens in The Shining, but not too much. So you could actually read them separately. You can read Doctor Sleep without having read The Shining, but as always, I would suggest not to do it. I'm not saying don't pick up Doctor Sleep if you read The Shining and enjoy The Shining, because maybe you will enjoy how things turn up in the sequel as well. I personally didn't. I thought it was too long, I think it was boring, and yeah, the solution was kind of cool. I remember that the ending was okay, but overall it was just dull in my opinion and not as fascinating as the Shining. Characters are traveling around. There was the lack of this setting, this hotel haunted, and maybe that's why I didn't enjoy it as much. I think I didn't like the journey, or it lacked the aspect of, you know, the haunted hotel and so on. I love haunted houses and castles and so on. So then maybe that's why the Shining worked and this one didn't. Yeah, I didn't take anything from it. Another one that I didn't like particularly was Finder Keepers, which is book number 2 in this guy series. This is a trilogy. The first one is Mr. Mercedes, which I enjoyed. It could have been in the, you know, in the middle. I gave it probably 3.5, 3.75 stars to Mr. Mercedes. You follow a detective resolving cases. The point of this second book, I remember that I didn't like the fact that you don't really follow our main guy. Like all the stories about the background story of the bad guy, and Bill does something just really in the last pages, and so I was looking for a detective story. Instead I got a bad guy story, but he was just a shitty guy with like a shitty motivation. Usually I'm okay like reading bad guy stories, like I'm totally up for it. I love bad guys, but I think this one was just, he's disgusting, and I am kind of done reading 100 pages and hundreds of pages of his little shit. So yeah, didn't work the second one. But I remember Mr. Mercedes, Bill was really involved in the case, and it was a mystery case. In the second one, instead, it was just, yeah, it was just not there, the crime element that I enjoyed from the first book. And then lastly, one that I despised was Misery. Misery, I freaking hated it. Misery is about this guy. He's a writer, and his car breaks down and he kind of faints, and when he wakes up he's in the house of this woman who said that she was helping him because he was really injured, but instead of bringing him to hospital, she brought him to his house, and now she's taking care of him, but she is really keeping him prisoner. Now, on one side, I've heard that people can find it fascinating for the character of the woman, but she's not. She is horrible, batshit crazy. So some might feel like she's interesting. It was weird for me that, you know, forensic psychology is my degree, so I am all for crazy people and like criminal behavior, but I didn't find her fascinating. I found it super frustrating. I didn't like the main guy. I was like, I don't care what happened to you, but this is absurd. Like, no one is looking for you, and this situation, like, I think there are some instances where he can escape and he doesn't for shitty motives. I didn't like her. In a sense, she was a bad guy well done, meaning that I hated her so much. I wanted to stomp on her face until it was smashed to pulps. So that's how much I hated her. I didn't find her fascinating. I find her gross and absolutely disgusting. And I think that's the point. Like, he wanted us to see her like that. But some people might enjoy that. For me, instead, it was just like, why did I read this? Like, I just hated everything and I didn't find anything fascinating. I didn't take anything from it. So it's not like you grossed me out, but then you gave me something back. You just grossed me out. And yeah, I'm not happy with that. But that's me opinion. So I would say that of all the books that I've mentioned, maybe Misery is the one that it's more likely that someone can actually enjoy. Personally, I hated it. I know that I'm not the only one, but yeah. Let me know in the comments down below which is your favorite Stephen King, if you read any of his, or if you have recommendations, or if I have to stay away from some of his books that you hated. Let me know. If you're new, I would love for you to subscribe, so hit the button down below. Enjoy your night, day, depending where you are, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!